Hi everyone, this is Darcy with Above the Tree Line, and this is Sales Rep Training Markups 101. And I'm going to flip over to my Edelweiss page, and I'm logged in as a sales rep. This is just a fictional page, so don't read too much into the samples that I'm using. But Norton has allowed me to use their catalogs, for which I am very grateful. But markups. So, what is a markup? First of all, sales reps use markups as a way to communicate, build trust, and really let their accounts know what books will sell best or circulate best in a given bookshop or library. Keep in mind that markups used to be in paper catalogs. So literally a paper catalog would be marked up with a red pen, a highlighter, maybe sticky notes or tabs. And that's essentially what you're going to do in Edelweiss. So we've given you the tools to essentially replicate that catalog, that paper catalog, that historic kind of with that historic significance. And we're allowing you to find 4 different ways to let your buyers know which books are going to move and turn for them. So markups are probably the single most important part of your job. And you want your markups to be something that well, they're very honest and true, and they're building this trust between you and your buyers. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into a collection. Generally speaking, you're going to make your markups right from your catalogs. So a catalog admin will create a catalog, let you as the sales rep know that that catalog has been created, and then you're going to go in and make the markup. You can also do it from a collection, and I just made a smaller collection of a Norton catalog to go ahead and give us a sample to work from. And by the way, once you make markups in a catalog, and then you take some titles, and it can even be from more than one catalog, and plunk those into a collection, your markup does travel with those titles. So that's also just a nice fact to know. And markups are made of 4 different components, 4 elements: priorities, tags, notes, and comps. So I'm going to talk about each of those. But before we get into the 4 components, when you're in Edelweiss and you see this blue bar, this tells you that you can go ahead and work and create a markup when this blue bar shows. You'll probably want to be in an unspecified account and just make a generic markup that can be shared with more than one account. But you definitely want to name your markup. So even if it's the first time that you're making one, if you don't name it, it will just go to default, and that's fine. But you probably want to distinguish between different catalogs or different markups, and you can easily do that. So you would just go to add new, and then you can name it. And if you already have markups of these titles, you actually are, you can select a markup to copy from, and you can literally check these boxes and pull the information from other markups. Likewise, I'll mention that if you and your colleagues are working together, you can share here, copying elements from one another. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in Markups 102. But for now, I'm just going to exit out of here because I'm already in Darcy's test markup. This is what I'm going to use as a sample. And we're going to look at these 4 places. So we've got the priorities with the little exclamation point, tags. This pencil gives us the note area, and then we'll talk about comps. So let's start with priorities. The generic or just the general default for Edelweiss after a catalog admin loads a catalog is for all of the priorities, all the titles to be set to not sets. So this is what the title looks like when there is no priority. The only exception to that is featured. So a catalog admin does have the choice of selecting a handful of titles to feature in a given catalog. So sometimes when you open the catalog for the first time, you'll notice that some titles are featured, and that came from the admin. You as a rep can override a featured title, and feel free to do that if you know that your accounts are not going to be interested in that given title. In this case, we'll take a look at this featured title. You'll notice that the jacket cover gets a little bit bigger. There are 4 stars and the word featured. It gets outlined in blue. So it kind of gives you a more, this title has a presence. It kind of sticks out. Another category is highlighted that also draws a lot of attention to the eye. So it literally just highlights that title and it tells the buyer that, hey, this is an important title. This is one that might really do well for you. So with this said, make sure that you use featured and highlighted judiciously. Don't overdo it, because if you say that every title is a featured or a highlighted title in a catalog, you're probably not going to do very much to build that trust, that trusting relationship. High priority looks like this, and low priority looks like this, and it kind of gives you an option just to, kind of not pay much attention to it. And a skip title literally skips it in the catalog. So I'm just going to refresh here for a moment and it will show you the skipped title. So a couple things to keep in mind at that end too, when you skip titles, you don't want to do that. You don't want to overdo those either, because your stores will wonder, why are there so many skipped titles? But let's say it's a children's buyer and you're working with adult titles, you can always hide the adult titles by skipping them if you wish. The buyer on their end, they have the option of clicking that X and opening the title back up if they wish to. So those are priorities. The next section, the next element is tags. And tags, think about tags as being actionable items. So they are things that are going to result in an action, either by you on the publisher side or by the bookseller. And think also about tags coming into different categories, and we're going to talk about those categories. But the other thing to keep in mind are that tags are a really quick and easy way to draw attention to a title's important attributes. And the bookseller can sort their catalogs. They can go into other actions, and they can literally sort their catalogs by priority, or sorry, I meant to click the sort button, not the other actions button. They can sort the catalog by priority or by tags. So and actually they can refine on the left-hand navigation bar. I'm not going to linger on that, but know that what you say about a book and a tag can have some real power, just like the priorities can have a real substantive power. So that's why it's important as a group, kind of collectively as a publishing house, to make some decisions about what you're going to tag and how you're going to tag it. So a real common one is rep favorite. So if you have some things that you think are really relevant, or it's a title that you want to draw to your buyer's attention, you can always say that. This is your chance to kind of give your opinion. But other things would be promotions. So this is a category, promotions. If you have co-op, display, things like that, or a certain discount code, you can make those into tags really easily. Housekeeping is another category for tags. If a back order is canceled, or if there's a review copy available. Indie Next or Library Reads, that's another category. If you want this book to be considered for Indie Next, you can say it's an Indie Next priority. Holidays are another category, so Father's Day, 4th of July, any holiday, kind of self-explanatory there. Regional author is another category of tag that can be really relevant for buyers. And then also an author event like Winter Institute. If you want to make a tag, all you have to do is start typing Winter Institute. I'm just going to go that far and click return. And then let me mention this to you. If you're making decisions as an organization, you want to try to kind of come to some agreements about how you're going to spell these things and abbreviate them. So this could have been WI, but you all have to kind of come to the decision together about how you're going to do it. There is a way to clean up tags if we go to the tags in the menu bar, but it's easier to kind of start with everybody on the same page. So that's the tags as an element. The next element is the markup note. And the markup note is an opportunity for you to really say what you think about this book. You can be super creative, and it can be fun. There are ways of making the text bold or highlighted or different colors. You can do bullet points. A lot of reps will use bullet points to kind of get their point across, so to speak. But make sure that you're kind of communicating as if you're sitting with your buyer in that moment and saying, these are the reasons I think that you should buy this book and have it on your shelves of your store or your library. Also, one of the things that I like that somebody told me once, and I think it's really true, is that the size of the markup matters. So if it's a small markup, that's giving your buyer a message that maybe this book is not the most important one, or maybe don't get a ton of copies of this title. But if the markup's a little bit longer, then it's sort of saying, hey, this is one you should really stop and consider. Keep in mind that you do not have to repeat all of the content that the publisher admin has already loaded into the catalog. Don't feel like you have to put all of that information into a markup, but at the same time, you want to say the things that are the most relevant. So let's say that the book has been reviewed and has a number of nice things that has been said about it. Rather than quoting all of those reviews in the markup, maybe just pick one or shorten it to one line. If you overwhelm the buyer in this markup area, and if all of your markups are super, super long, it gets tedious. And you can imagine being in the buyer's, in their shoes and looking at all of this stuff to sift through. And remember, they're getting markups from tons of publishers coming in all at the same time. So make it reader friendly and try to get right to the point and give them just what they need. And then I'm going to move on to the fourth element, which is the comparable titles. So actually, let me say one more thing. Like if this is a big print run, I'm going to say 20,000 print run. That's another thing that a lot of publishing houses, they make the decision together to put that right at the top and maybe put it in a certain color or highlight it. So that's just another example of a way that you can have some consistent decisions made with your house and send messages with a lot of clarity. I just wanted to add that in really quickly. Now, obviously, we could spend a lot more time talking about notes, but know that we have help documents that offer a lot of other suggestions. So let's move on to comparable titles. So with this title, Guns, Germs, and Steel, there are already a couple of different editions of this book. And the catalog admin was kind enough to load those in, which is great because almost all of our indie stores now have, and many, many libraries, it's a hugely growing market, and they have analytics. So the reason that comp titles are significant and important is because it tells that the stores that have analytics, at least at the base camp level, can see if that previous format has done well for them. So if it has, you're going to want to highlight those comps. And the store will be able to see its sales data and know that, yes, those books sold well. Therefore, I know that this new format or this other edition, that I better get a couple of copies of this one as well. You can change the order. In this case, it's not as interesting because it's the same title 2 times with the same author. But that is, in fact, the comp that has the greatest value when it's the same title and the same author. The next kind of hierarchical level of comp would be the same author and a different title. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as an example. I'm going to type the author in here. And let's see, I just forgot his last name as I was typing. And I'm going to go to search. And I'm just going to go ahead and pick, I'm going to choose a couple of other things by Jared Diamond. just to show you what this looks like. So you just click the titles that look good, and then you add those selected comps to that title. So this is, as a buyer, you are, I'm going to refresh my page. I think I clicked something inadvertently, but great. Okay, here we are. I just went, somehow I ended up skipping that title again. Okay, great. So I'm back in here in Guns, Germs, and Steel, and I'm back in the comp area. So as soon as I, as a rep, add a title, it automatically becomes a highlighted comp because I added it. And just like booksellers and librarians can sort by priority and they can sort by tags, they can also choose to show just the highlighted comps. They do not want a list of 15 or even 10 comps. Buyers really want a list of 3 to 5. That's what they tell us all of the time. And when people overdo comps, it's sort of like overdoing a highlighted priority. So keep it simple, keep it relevant, and think about their sales data. Is this a book that has a different format? Choose it. If it's a title by the same author that was in the last year or two, choose it. If it's a title that was written 20 years ago, don't choose it. If it's the same subject matter and a different author, that's kind of the lowest on the totem pole, if you will, and should be chosen as a last resort. It's not as necessary to include those books unless they're really, really relevant. So another thing that you can do if you don't know comparable titles with a given book, you can go to find additional comps, and I'll just show you this other nice thing you can do. Many titles have community comps, and you can click that oval, and it will tell you the other books that are available. So I'll go ahead and click that. The other one's not showing because it's already in our comp list. So I'm going to choose this one that is available, add it to selected, and there it is. So I've got 5 really relevant comps that I know that I can trust, and therefore I know my buyer will trust me. I can always, again, switch the order if I want to, move these up and down, and then share it with the buyer. Sharing will be in the next video, Markups 102. So for today, for this video, I was able to talk to you about how to create a markup. Don't forget to name it. And then the 4 elements: priorities, tags, notes, and comparable titles. I know it's a lot of information and there's more to talk about within each of those categories. So don't hesitate to write to us at support@abovethetreeline.com for more information, or go to our help site, our knowledge center, and click some more of those articles on these markup elements. You'll find a lot more information there. Thanks for joining.